We need to talk about this Trump rally. But first, I think it should be contextualized with how it fits into a Vice President Harris argument she's making. The final days to the election is what we're experiencing right now. And so that means the message from either candidate is that much more crucial. And one of the things that Vice President Harris is choosing to put a lot of emphasis on is Trump's cognitive abilities, his exhaustion, as we're hearing reported, being on the campaign trail, and his fitness for office. And let me play for you a Harris clip, and then I'm going to show you a bunch of clips from the Trump rally that don't help Trump's defense of himself. We can say that for sure.
And now he's...
By the way, please do. We have days left to the election, and we've been hoping to get to 1 million subscribers by the election. If you want to help us to that, click the subscribe button. Thank you so much.
And now he's ducking debates and canceling interviews because of exhaustion. And when he does answer a question or speak at a rally, have you noticed he tends to go off script and ramble? And generally, for the life of him, cannot finish a thought. And he has called it the weave. But I think we here will call it nonsense.
Now, I think there's a couple of reasons that she's putting a lot of emphasis on that. One is if shows like mine, other independent media shows, emphasizing Trump's cognitive abilities or lack thereof or some decline, if that doesn't get broadly mainstream media talking about it, as it has taken a while at least to see the impact of our discussions carry over into mainstream media, then Harris talking about it can definitely get that as a main topic of conversation. So that is important because we want a fit president cognitively, of course. But I think also she saw how much poking at Trump actually caused him to unravel more and seem even more unhinged. And so on this, she gets two birds with one stone. She both puts emphasis on something that more outlets need to be talking about, and so then they talk about it more. And Trump hears about it being talked about, so he gets really insecure. So he rants about how, no, I'm really cognitively fit, whatever we've been hearing him say. And last thing before getting to the clips, here is Jake Tapper's reporting on the contrast of two rallies. Harris staying on message, Trump very much not.
Swing state rallies last night, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump offered voters sharply different closing messages. Harris kept the focus on Trump, questioning his fitness for office, while in a major speech to the voters of Pennsylvania, Donald Trump went off on a 12-minute tangent about former pro golfer Arnold Palmer, which included this bizarre anecdote about the athlete's penis.
And I'll play that clip for you. Ooh, the anticipation. You need to hear that story, don't you? So let's get into what Jake Tapper was reporting on. I'm glad to see him telling the story of two rallies correctly. And while Harris was criticizing Trump's mental stamina and abilities and the threat he may pose to our democracy, Trump was sharpening his message on the economy. And sometimes you hear that saying watching. This was a great way to do it. They had two rallies. On one end, you heard a Harris message that was clear and concise and relevant. And then a Trump message that was very much not those things. And you can imagine Trump comes out on stage in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, and has his teleprompter that he could start reading off of so he can have a normal beginning to his speech. But instead he thinks, I'm going to tell a 12-minute story about golfer Arnold Palmer. Sometimes I struggle with that name. And eventually it concludes in Palmer's penis. But first, here's a couple spots. You can see the crowd was sort of confused as to why he was telling such a long story.
On Hollywood stars, and it became the biggest of those companies like William Morris and all of them. And it was all because of Arnold. Arnold owned a big piece of it. Arnold was a very rich man. And I said to Arnold, I got to know him when he was 69 years old. And I played pretty much with him, a lot of them. And as he got older, you know, when you get older, you start to lose a thing called distance. And I'm a good golfer. Not like that, but I'm a good golfer. And I felt so good because I was hitting it a little bit longer than Arnold. But he was by this time about 75, 76. And I'd hit it 4 or 5 yards past him. I said, Arnold, let me ask you, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, was I longer than you? He said, Donald wasn't president or close at that time. That was long before I decided to have this fund.
Yeah, and he said not even close. And so then Trump goes on that for a while. And just the explore section, to give you a sense of how this is being summarized, the clip you're about to watch, in media, the explore section on X describes what you're about to watch as golfers showering together, a Trump anecdote. And here was how the 12-minute ramble about Palmer concluded.
But Arnold Palmer was all man. And I say that in all due respect to women, and I love women. But this is a guy that was all man. This man was strong and tough. And I refuse to say it, but when he took showers with the other pros, they came out of there, they said, oh my God, that's unbelievable. I had to say it. We have women that are highly sophisticated here.
Mm-hmm. And you know what highly sophisticated women just love discussing? Palmer's penis. Now, before going further, that is one way you can, as we're seeing, he can conduct himself days before this consequential election, is to confuse a crowd. They liked that last part. Some of them did. But for 12 minutes to sit there sort of in silence and just go, why are we talking about this? And it really does fit into the point that Harris made at the debate that has been represented at every rally before and since from Trump, which is he really will be on stage for a while. You can't question that. He will talk for a while. But go to the rally if you so dare. See if he's talking about things that matter to you or if it's mostly about him. See if when he's trying to make a point, it makes sense or if it's pretty incoherent. And if he has to justify his incoherence 2, 3, 4 times, as we've been seeing in interviews, by saying it's something magical called the weave, where he says a lot of stuff in a fragmented way, goes off on tangents, but it's all exhibiting a really complex image that then will be clear to you at the end. It's like those painters that in front of a crowd just are splattering paint and they're doing all this random stuff. You don't know what's happening. And then boom, all of a sudden you see Jesus's face or something. That's what Trump does with his spattering of words. Then Trump said this.
And this one, Kamala, is further left than them. So you have to tell Kamala Harris that you've had enough, that you just can't take it anymore. We can't stand you. You're a shit vice president. The worst. You're the worst vice president. Kamala, you're fired. Get the hell out of here. You're fired. Get out.
Well, that's something. Many people have pointed this out, and it's so true no matter how unproductive it feels to point this out, because it's been pointed out gazillions of times. It's not going to change anything, apparently, because people don't care about hypocrisy. But if Vice President Harris went on stage and said, Donald Trump is a shit president, Fox News, MAGA media would lose their mind. They would say, this is proof that she doesn't have the character and integrity to be president. So vulgar, so unpresidential. How dare she? By saying that, oh, you know you would hear this. By saying that, she's calling every supporter of Donald Trump poo-poo. But Trump does it, and it's barely going to be discussed, other than in mainly online shows. Then on generals that have dared to specify that they serve not at the pleasure of Donald Trump, but in dedication to the Constitution, Trump said,
These stupid people like Milley, General Milley. Remember his performance in Congress? General Milley and Mattis, all these guys, what a bunch of lightweights. But we have...
What a bunch of lightweights. Here, more. Oh, wait, this is the wrong clip. Let's see.
Do you believe they have a...
If I can stay on the correct topic, I will do this one.
To expedite removals of Trenday, Aragua, and other savage gangs, I will invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Can you believe that? We couldn't have an act like that now because now everything's woke, you know? We have woke generals like Milley and Mattis. We have woke people. They don't do things like this. So we had to go back.
Highly respected, highly decorated generals, people who dedicate their entire life to serving the country. None of that matters anymore in terms of their credibility with MAGA. None of that matters in terms of the loyalty MAGA has to them, or at least the good faith engagements that you'd think at the very least they'd be able to engage in with these individuals. Instead, because they dare to not be Trump's, I don't know, loyalists, MAGA calls them woke, brushes them aside. Doesn't matter what you do in your life. If while Trump was saying his Vietnam was avoiding STDs, while Trump was being a billionaire bachelor, or while Trump was cheating on his wife who had a newborn at home with a porn star, these individuals were serving the country. But at this point in time, doesn't matter. None of that matters because Trump is now Trump, and we're going to say that he's always right. Does hundreds, thousands of people are just all lying about him and his character. He's the only person who has truth. Then Trump said this.
Do you believe they have a phone app for the criminal cartels to call up? Hello, this is Jose Rodriguez. I'd like to know, where do I dispose of my illegal migrants? And they tell you.
And I've already addressed this, but the app he's talking about, the CBP1 app, is something that facilitates services for the Customs and Border Protection on numerous different things. And it was officially launched while Trump was president. So it doesn't do what he's saying in that ridiculous reenactment, but sometimes he'll say this app was created by Kamala to let undocumented immigrants in. And it's a part of the fear mongering, but there's no fact to it. And if we're going to even take all of his premises at face value, which we shouldn't, but pretending like we would, then it would all be his fault because it was launched while he was president. Then, to his memory issues, he keeps insisting, I guess he's thinking of the Steelers game, is tonight. And whenever he was delivering the speech, it wasn't tonight.
So in conclusion, and thank you for being here, everybody. This is beautiful. We'll get you out real fast. We're going to get you go watch that game tonight, right? We really do appreciate this kind of crowd and love. The love that we've had is incredible.
And then you have this.
And also, I tell you, if you're a football fan, these guys are good. I guess they're going to the game a little bit later or something. You going to the game? Are you going, or are you going to watch it on television? Former NFL stars, Antonio Brown. Oh, he was a good player. He was a good player.
So seemingly a little bit confused about when the game was happening. But this has led to, well, this combined with years of data, The Associated Press finally reporting on this. Trump will be the oldest person to become president. He's not sharing health details. And it writes, if he wins next month's election, Donald Trump would be the oldest person in U.S. history to be elected president. Yet the 78-year-old Republican nominee refuses to disclose new details about his physical or mental well-being, breaking decades of precedent. And it's what Harris has been pointing out. He refuses to be transparent about his health, which is obviously a very consequential thing. And it breaks with what presidential candidates have been doing for decades and decades and decades. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Support the show. Get the members only bonus show by clicking the join button below.